I am about to give you emphatic, undeniable proof that it is completely safe to tell your woke employees to GTFO when they try to bring their politics into your office. So we have to rewind a little bit because about a month ago, I covered this story of Coinbase's CEO who frankly did just that. He decided that he wanted his employees to be focusing on, well, the actual business and their actual jobs and not implementing woke training nonsense. And so essentially he wrote this memo saying, we ain't gonna do this stuff as a company. Well, his employees, because these are in Silicon Valley, it should be expected, the employees didn't like that too much. They yelled and screamed like they're employees of Spotify when Joe Rogan posts a new podcast, and they carried on, and the CEO stood his ground. He issued a memo saying, if you don't like this, here is a very generous severance package. We can part ways. Our values do not align with this. Now, he wasn't necessarily saying that he was like anti-woke by any stretch of the imagination. All he said was, we're not bringing politics to work. And if you don't like that, if you want to work at a place that's uber woke and all you're doing all day is having struggle sessions, well, that ain't gonna be here. And he offered them, a really generous severance package. In fact, let's just scroll right down here and see if we can find even some information about this severance package, because it was pretty flipping epic. Okay, here it is. CEO Brian Armstrong told Coinbase staff in an email that the company would offer severance packages to anyone who doesn't feel comfortable with this new direction. The pay package ranged from 4 to 6 months, depending on how long the employee had been with the company. Life is too short to work at a company that you aren't excited about. Hopefully this package helps create a win-win outcome for those who choose to opt out. Now, this alone made Brian Armstrong a hero in my mind, because he stood up to his employees, he said no, and he offered them a golden parachute to leave. Listen, man, a 4 to 6 month severance package is pretty flipping generous, and so all the woke employees had a chance to put their values where their mouth are and take the package and move on. So, you want to guess how many of them did it? Here's the follow-up. Here's the information that has come out since. You want to guess how many of these uber woke employees embraced their values and said, no, Brian, I am not going to work in a place that does not allow me to be woke. I will go and stand by what I believe in and take this amazing severance package with 4 to 6 months of pay and insurance, and I will go find another job where I can be as woke as I want to be. You want to guess how many of them did it? Well, we know 5%. 5%. 5. Not 10, not 15, not 50. 5% of employees took him up on this offer. I gotta be honest, I expected it to be much higher, and I just stumbled across this information the other day. I wasn't even looking for it. It just happened to be in another article I was reading about, talking about politics at work and all that, and I stumbled upon this, that 5% of his employees took him up on this. That's no worse than what you would experience in terms of turnover in a good restructuring. So this article from Bloomberg, and this is from several weeks ago, but guys, we had some other stuff going on, so you'll have to forgive me, but we're getting back to it. Quitting your job as political protest is a lot easier if you're in tech. Now, this article is not specifically about this, but I think it's so interesting how they frame it. Bloomberg is going to try to convince you that this was just an epic fail, the worst thing that could ever happen at Coinbase. They're going to try to convince you of that, and I'm going to explain why they're wrong. There's at least one thing more remarkable than the sheer number of employees who left Coinbase Inc. last week over disagreements with the company's ban on political speech. It's that they did so while the U.S. faces an unemployment crisis, rising uncertainty over economic outlook post-election. 60 people, which might sound like a lot if we don't have the overall context, but we do. 60 people, or 5% of Coinbase's staff, opted for exit packages after Chief Executive Officer Brian Armstrong told employees to either keep their political views and social activism out of the workplace or leave. The company, which runs a platform to buy and sell Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, instituted the policy after workers staged a walkout over Armstrong's silence on the Black Lives Matter movement. Everyone is asking the question about how companies should engage in broader societal issues during this difficult time. Armstrong wrote in a blog post, "We have just made the decision not to engage in broader activism." And so what I'm trying to point out here is that, like, listen to how this is written. The sheer number is remarkable. Dude, 5% of your employees is really not that bad. In the grand scheme of things, if these employees were going to come in and be disruptive and this paid for itself. I promise you, giving each of these 60 employees, or 5%, I'm going to keep drilling that number in, 5% of your overall employees this severance package to keep them from bringing struggle sessions into meeting and demanding they do diversity training and constantly getting in arguments with coworkers and telling coworkers they're racist and telling coworkers they're sexist and telling coworkers they're misogynist and spending their afternoons reading online about Black Lives Matter and tweeting about Black Lives Matter and talking about Black Lives Matter. I guarantee you that Coinbase saved money in this decision. I guarantee it, because now they've laid down the gauntlet. They've said, this is the type of company we're going to be, and this crap isn't happening here. What you're going to do when you come to this company is you're going to focus on your job. You're going to do your job. You're going to meet your goals. That is what is expected. Whether you voted for Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, I don't know why anyone would vote for Libertarian, but okay. Like, doesn't matter who you voted for. It doesn't matter if you voted at all. We don't really care. We want you to come in and focus on your job. And 5% of their employees said, nope, not for us. Well, toodles, man, because I guarantee you the disruption that those employees would have cost way more than 4 to 6 months of salary. But of course, other tech CEOs were just shocked and clutching their pearls at the fact that the company would even consider in Silicon Valley not going woke. And I just thought this was like a little funny epilogue. Coinbase's no politics stance rankles Silicon Valley executives. And here we've got a couple folks from our favorite censoring machine, Twitter, making an appearance. Bitcoin, aka crypto, is direct activism against an unverifiable and exclusionary financial system which negatively affects so much of our society, says Jack Dorsey. To not acknowledge and connect the related social and political issues leaves people behind, according to the Twitter chiefs. Twitter's former CEO, Dick Costolo, also lamented how this move will dilute the tech industry's culture, which used to welcome lively debate about ideas and society. This isn't great leadership. It's an abdication of leadership. It's the equivalent of telling your employees to shut up and dribble. Well, I find two things very funny about those collective statements. One, this idea that we live in a place where we welcome lively debate about ideas in society, and Jack Dorsey is saying this while at the same time Twitter is actively censoring and banning conservatives, like, at a really alarming rate. Right before I got on to do this video, I want to show you guys this. Right before I got on to do this video, I was having a problem with my video recording software, so I took a break and I looked at Twitter and I saw this tweet from Terrence K. Williams. The Supreme Court should rule this election as invalid or throw out all the mail-in votes. It's too much fraud. That is a literal opinion. That is an opinion. That is an opinion. Okay? It's an opinion. He's allowed to have an opinion. This is what a lively debate about ideas in society looks like, Jack. He's allowed to have an opinion. What did Twitter do with this? Well, check this out. I went to retweet this, and because I noticed it put this little notification, learn how voting by mail is safe and secure. You know what Twitter did when I tried to retweet it? They wanted me to take a tutorial from them about how mail-in voting is safe and secure. You want to tell me Twitter's not censoring conservatives? Please, please. But the other part of this that I find really funny is this idea that telling your employees not to be woke is the equivalent of telling them to shut up and dribble. Listen, here's the reality, folks. Here's the reality. Each and every one of those employees at Coinbase was hired to do a job. When they were hired, I'm sure they probably had a job description saying this is what you are responsible for doing. I'm sure they probably have some sort of performance review process in place in which they regularly assess, whether it's on a quarterly or monthly or yearly, whatever basis, if the employee is meeting their goals or not. I'm sure they also have a bonus structure in place where exceptional employees who do a really great job of meeting their goals get extra pay. This is how the world works. To tell them that this is just about shut up and dribble, well, guess what? Telling someone to focus on their job is the equivalent of telling them to shut up and dribble, and that is exactly what you hired them to do. These companies do not hire employees to be woke and to bring this nonsense into the workplace. Listen, at least 50%, well, I mean, maybe not at least 50% in Silicon Valley, but statistically speaking, in any organization, about 50% of people are on the Trump train, man. That's just reality. Look at the vote in the election. 50% of the employees in almost any organization are going to be Trump supporters or Republicans or conservatives, and you are alienating at least half of your at least half of your employee base when you allow the woke Nazis to come in and take over everything. It's extraordinarily costly to businesses. So the lesson that I really want businesses to take from this is, look, man, Brian Armstrong, he went out on a limb. He works in one of the toughest areas, in one of the toughest industries, to say no to woke nonsense. And when he offered a very generous severance package, what percent of employees took him up on it? What percent? 5%. Are you willing to lose 5% of your employees in order to keep woke nonsense out of your company? That is an amazing investment. So you have to be strong when you're doing this stuff. Yes, they're going to cry and they're going to be loud and they're going to shout and they're going to complain, but executives need to find the thing that got them to the executive position in the first place, and they need to make a decision to say no. You can do this in your own private time. We don't care what you do in your own private time. We don't care who you vote for. We don't care what you tweet about. We don't care what protests you go to. You can do that in your own time. When you're on our dime, you are here to do a job. That is what you're going to do. Now, if they don't like it, then they can go work somewhere else. And guess what? You're going to be all the better for it because you will have set a precedent. You will have set a standard for your employees to live up to that you can then hold them accountable to. This is part of how you make high-performing and more resilient teams. But, I just did this crap for a living before I started complaining on the internet, so really, what do I know? Really, I could be making this all up and probably am. No, I'm really not. I'm 100% right on this one. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for this story. If you enjoyed this story, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel. It seems as though there was a weird YouTube outage last night, and it also happened to coincide with the fact that it was the first night in like a week and a half that I did not have a bulk unsubscribe from my channel. So, hey man, maybe the YouTube screwing with me is over. I have no idea. But if you enjoyed this video, I do daily content around news, politics, culture, sometimes the workplace, really anything that I find interesting. If you want to take this ride with me, go ahead and click that little red subscribe button down below. Turn on notifications. If you really want to help me out, share this video out, tell your friends and family about it, and give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, all those good things. That's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.